Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here today. I'm Virginie Martin, Shaw's account executive for the BC public sector, and I'm located here in Victoria. I would like to acknowledge I have the privilege of attending the conference today on the traditional territory of Language people. On behalf of Shaw, I want to thank you for the opportunity to sponsor this event and to be part of the Rising Economy Week. For close to 2 years, businesses, communities, and government have had to pivot to adapt to a new way of working. Never has access to dependable broadband services been more important than it is now. As we look to the future economy of South Island, technology will continue to be very important. SHA is committed to continue working with businesses, communities, and local governments to ensure new technology solutions and services are available. As mentioned before, I'm based out of Victoria, and I'm happy to meet with any of the SIP membership. SHA has been working closely with SIP and recognizes the importance of the Rising Economy Week and the importance the SIP community has on its economy. I'm personally grateful to be part of this amazing group of leaders and to be here today to introduce our next speaker, Julie Angus. Julie is the CEO and co-founder of Open Ocean Robotics, a marine robotics and data analytics company. She is a bestseller author, scientist, explorer who received National Geographic's Adventurer of the Year award when she became the first woman to row across the Atlantic Ocean from mainland to mainland. Julie has written 3 books, has a graduate degree in microbiology, and is a serial entrepreneur who co-founded 2 previous ocean-focused businesses. Julie is a director at NATO's Maritime Unmanned System Initiative Innovation Advisory Board and is a board member of the Center of Ocean Applied Sustainable Technologies, COAST. Julie has an honorary degree from McMaster University and is a Royal Canadian Geographic Society Fellow. In 2020, she was awarded Innovator of the Year by BC Business, and in 2021, she was recognized as industry icon by the BC clean tech industry. This is amazing. Over to you, Julie.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction, and it's just a pleasure to be here with you today and to share my story and share the excitement about why we are in such a special place in Victoria and in southern Vancouver Island to grow the blue economy, because we do have an incredible opportunity here. We have outstanding companies, researchers, institutions, and the blue economy is one of the fastest growing economies. It's $3 trillion in size, and it encompasses so much of the activity that takes place on our waters, from recreational activity to producing energy to securing our food to our transportation. And today I want to talk about why the blue economy matters and why I am so passionate about the ocean economy and how that led me to really a career in growing businesses in this economy. And so to be fair, I never thought I would have such a close relationship with the ocean. I grew up in landlocked places between Air Force bases in Alberta and in Ontario. And, I never really did anything remotely adventurous. In fact, the only trophies that I ever brought home were for math contests. So I think my parents were quite surprised when I embarked on the career that I have. But for me, I always understood the importance of pushing boundaries and being curious and always wanting to see what's around the corner. And that led me to, first of all, moving to the West Coast from Ontario for my graduate degree at University of Victoria, and then into a series of expeditions that included rowing across the Atlantic Ocean, a 5-month journey from Portugal to Costa Rica, traveling by rowboat. from the top of Scotland to Syria in the Middle East, and exploring many waterways throughout Europe in an expedition that was working with National Geographic to understand the history of the olive tree. And the thing about these expeditions, it was about exploring the ocean and the waterways. It was an adventure. It was something that, I found personally very rewarding. But one of the most rewarding things was also being able to share it with other people through books, documentary, speaking events. And, that has led me to create other ways of sharing my love of the ocean through the businesses that I've started. But really, it did all start in a rowboat crossing the Atlantic Ocean. So I think I'd like to take you to that expedition and show you what it was like to be out there for 5 months. So this is the ocean rowboat that we used. It's a 24-foot rowboat that's designed for ocean crossing. So it's self-righting. So if it isn't a big storm and it capsizes, it should right itself. It has a lot of modern equipment like solar panels. We had the Iridium satellite phone. We had a desalinator to make water because you can't actually carry enough water for a journey of that duration. But the only way to move it is those oars. And there's no support boat traveling alongside us. It's just myself and my partner, Colin. And so a lot of preparation went into getting ready for this row. It's very self-contained. It's kind of like you're going out into space. There's no way you're going to replenish along the way, and you have to be able to take everything with you and deal with any kind of challenge that you may encounter. And so finally, after months of preparation, we left land. So that was from Lisbon, Portugal. And this is a very exciting moment. Just imagine you've been planning something for a year and finally you're on your way. And that feeling of elation lasted for probably about 4 hours. And then we moved away from the shelter of land and into the open ocean, and the big swell of the sea just lifted and lowered our boat and shook us from side to side. And well, we were pretty darn seasick for those first few days, and it was pretty challenging being out there. And even if you're not feeling well, you still have to row because you have to get away from land. And we would row in 2-hour shifts all throughout the night. And I'll always remember that first day as we were rowing away from Lisbon, watching land get smaller and smaller in the distance, and knowing that we wouldn't step on shore again until we crossed the ocean and reached land again. So that was a pretty intimidating feeling. But eventually, things do get normalized on the boat. You get used to that routine. Blisters turn into calluses, and it doesn't seem quite so overwhelming anymore. And so we really came to enjoy the ocean around us, get accustomed to it, fall into routines. When we weren't rowing, we would make water, eat, take care of navigation. We had some school initiatives running with us. And probably about 3 weeks in, I called my dad. I would try to call him once a week to reassure him, because parents worry, and with good reason. And he said, Julie, I've got some really bad news. And then he told me a hurricane had formed on the Atlantic Ocean, and it was expected to come directly over us. And at first I thought, there's no way this can be right, because we spent, a year researching this route, looking at all of the historical data to reduce the likelihood of even encountering a storm, let alone a hurricane. And not to mention, we were in waters that had never before seen a hurricane. But just to be on the safe side, I called the National Hurricane Center in Florida, and they concurred. He was 100% right. It was the most northern, most eastern hurricane, and it was coming directly over us. So that is really not good news when you're in a rowboat in the middle of the ocean. And, even though we didn't expect to get hit by a hurricane, we were prepared for, unexpected events and bad weather. And so that's when those preparations started to come into place. And really, from that point on, the environment around us started to change. First, we started to see these strange cloud formations, and then the ocean started to, become less placid, because it was really calm prior to that, sort of the calm before the storm. First, it was this big sort of swell that would lift and lower our boat, almost like a giant elevator, and it just spoke of this storm that was very far away. And then, of course, the waves started to build, and it became much more difficult to row. And then we rowed as long as we could, but eventually we would just get pushed off of our rowing seat, and we snapped an oar as the boat rolled over onto it, and then we went inside our cabin. And our cabin is really small. It's about the size of the underneath of your average kitchen table. So you can imagine squishing two people in there is not that comfortable. And the walls are foam, so they're slightly padded, so they provide a little bit of protection, but not much. So, we need to brace ourselves against the walls as the boat is rolling from side to side. And the storm is building around us. And in the thick of it, the waves grew to be 50 feet in height. So that is the height of a 5-story building. And these are crashing waves, and they're crashing against our boat. And it's just has so much impact when the water hits the boat. And one of the challenges is that our cabin is watertight, so it protects us, but it's also airtight. So this means that we need to actually open the hatch periodically to let air in. And that is, of course, a very challenging situation, because if you time it wrong, you're going to get a huge wave breaking into the boat. So we came up with a system where we would listen to the ocean, and after a particularly large wave hit, there was a little bit of a lull, almost as the water seemed to pull away from the boat. And it was in that moment that we would open the hatch, and then it was just like just spray and wind would come into the cabin, and then we would continue on. So we spent 3 days in the cabin like that. And then finally on the third night, we could tell the storm was a little bit quieter. And then in the morning, we could see that the waves were smaller. We still couldn't row, but we thought, that's it. We've done it. We've survived a hurricane in a rowboat, something we hoped would never happen, but we had made it through it. And I think, whenever you go through these challenges in life, you learn something from it. It makes you stronger. And it certainly did for us. And of course, we hoped never to use the lessons we learned to deal with another hurricane. But as chance would have it, it was actually the worst hurricane season in all of history. And we did get hit by a second hurricane. So I'm just going to show you a video clip from one of the lessons we learned from our first hurricane and took to the second.
Well, we've got another hurricane coming towards us, and we've done everything we possibly can to prepare the boat. We've battened down the hatches, we've secured down loose gear, tied everything, screwed down the hatches inside the cabin, and now it's just a waiting game. And the biggest danger if the boat does roll is getting slammed into the walls, and in order to and getting broken bones or even head injuries. To protect our heads, we've actually fastened helmets, which we've made from pantyhose, and we've stuffed the interior with clothing. And so if we do end up banging our heads against the wall, it will actually protect us somewhat, much better than not having anything at all.
So I know I said that I would talk about why I love the ocean. And after I shared that story, you're probably wondering why. And the thing with this expedition was, yes, it had its very challenging moments, but it also had so much beauty. And the ocean is an incredible, remarkable place. And, you know, part of that beauty is the marine life that we saw. So pods of spinner dolphins, sharks, whales, turtles that would actually come underneath our boat and eat the barnacles that were growing on the hull of our vessel. And flying fish, which are remarkable. They just take off and glide across the water. And these magnificent frigate birds, which eat the flying fish as they take to the water, escaping the dorado or tuna that are chasing them underneath. And triggerfish, these little guys were actually our favorite. They follow slow-moving objects for thousands of kilometers across the ocean. And so we had some that stayed with us for months. We actually named a little trio, Ned, Ted, and Fred, and we could recognize them by little nicks in their fins. And we fed them our oatmeal and things like that. And then, of course, we did eat a few fish as well. This is dorado or mahi-mahi, which is the only fish that we ate. But, you know, after 5 months of being on the ocean, you get pretty sick of it. So, you know, we celebrated my birthday, Colin's birthday, Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day, all that time without, you know, any fresh food, any cold drinks. And finally, we're approaching land. And this is just such an exciting moment to complete our journey, which was really, you know, such a dream for both Colin and myself, and to arrive in Limon, Costa Rica. Of course, after being on the ocean for 5 months, stepping on shore is not the easiest thing. And, you know, for that first week on land, I'm sure everyone thought we were drunk. Not only was our sense of balance gone, but, you know, a lot of the muscles in our legs had atrophied. But we learned so many things on this expedition. You know, we learned the power of setting small goals, milestones, baby steps. You know, it was sometimes just too overwhelming to think of how far we still had to go, but breaking it down into smaller steps made it achievable. And we also learned how hard it is to be out on the ocean, how beautiful it is, and how we wanted to share that with other people, to enable others to explore the ocean, maybe not exactly in that way, but in other ways. And so it led us to create a number of maritime businesses afterwards. And really, there are a lot of parallels between starting a company and executing an expedition. With an expedition and with a company, you have your plan of what you want to accomplish and you know what you want, how you're going to get there. And then reality sets in, and reality never looks anything like your plan. There's all kinds of detours and setbacks and challenges, and it takes longer than you anticipate. But eventually, if you keep your eye on the goal, you get there. And so, but one of the businesses we started was Angus Robots. So that's a way to help people get out on the ocean in rowboats. So a range of different boats to really allow people to go out there and explore and experience the ocean, whether it's a rowing sailboat like this, or a small boat to get kids out on the ocean, like our little ones. And then 3 years ago, we shifted from rowboats to robot boats. And now we're exploring the ocean using innovation and using technology. And our boats are solar powered, autonomous boats that can voyage for extended periods of time and collect data that is essential to understanding and operating on our oceans. And this is very important because right now, 80% of our oceans are unexplored, unmapped, unsurveyed, and as a result, it's very difficult to protect them. It's very difficult to operate on them, and that leads to all kinds of challenges, such as illegal fishing, where 30% of fish is still caught illegally. But autonomy can overcome many of those challenges. It offers a persistent, affordable, and safe solution to ocean monitoring. And our vessels use robotics, AI, and software to be able to collect data and then transform that into actionable insights. And so really it's, it's an autonomous boat that is designed to be very ruggedized. It can go out in hurricane-like conditions. It's self-righting, just like our rowboat was. And it's, instead of us powering it, the sun powers it. So it's completely solar powered. So this means that there's no greenhouse gas emissions, and it can go out for months at a time, just harvesting the energy that it needs. And it's a platform for a variety of sensors so that we can measure the things that are important to understand in the ocean. And some of the benefits about using autonomous technology compared to a lot of the more traditional ocean monitoring methods, which generally rely on ships or aircraft or stationary structures such as buoys, is that it's affordable, it's safer because you're not putting people out on the ocean. It's non-intrusive, it's quiet, there's no GHG emissions, and it's very flexible and modular. You can measure a lot of different things, and it's easy to deploy and maintain. You can just put it out from a boat launch ramp. You don't need a lot of resources or even specific expertise that you would need to, operate a ship or an aircraft. So as a result, you're seeing industries starting to look towards using these new innovations to be able to overcome some of the challenges they face in monitoring the oceans. And the areas that we're active in include environmental monitoring. So we've worked with government organizations like the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and the Canadian Coast Guard. It's also important for defense and security. So doing work in illegal fishing enforcement and detecting different types of threats. And then a variety of maritime monitoring, so marine mammal monitoring here on the West Coast, understanding the southern resident killer whale populations and being able to better know where they are and how they're impacted by the noise around them and the activity and the interaction with people with the ocean. And, for us, this is, it's really exciting to be here to see this vision that started out in a rowboat as we were crossing the Atlantic, thinking about how can we make it easier to understand our oceans when nobody can really get out here in the middle of our oceans, and to see it operational. And, this is a true startup. I mean, it started as a project in our garage 3 years ago, and now we've built it to a company with 15 people, with customers around the world, with significant investment. And we're just really at the stage we're going to see this technology grow and be implemented and start to shift how we operate on our oceans. And I think that is, one of the very exciting things about the blue economy is that we're at a turning point where we can embrace sustainable technology and innovations to make a profound impact. And I think here in Canada and in the world, and in Victoria and BC, we are very well positioned to be global leaders in the blue economy. I mean, Canada has the longest coastline in the world. We have incredible tech companies, amazing academic institutions. We have government support. We're globally recognized as a leader in clean tech. And so I think we should be global leaders in the blue economy as well. And here in BC, in Victoria, in southern Vancouver Island, we are particularly well positioned to take advantage of this. BC has the largest blue economy GDP of all of Canada's provinces, and it employs the most people. And it represents 3.3% of our province's GDP, which is twice as high as the Canadian blue economy GDP. And, the goal here is for us to grow our blue economy together. And when we look at Victoria and we look at the southern Vancouver Island, we have so many advantages. Here in this region, we have 75% of marine science and tech firms for the province, along with incredible organizations like the Royal Canadian Navy, the Canadian Coast Guard, Transport Canada, DFO, Ocean Networks Canada. We are ideally positioned in terms of the coastline and having access to a lot of different coastlines, a lot of different ecosystems. And of course, we have strong relationships with Indigenous communities, and meaningful consultation with First Nations is critical to growing our blue economy. And so, I'm part of the board for COAST, which is the Center for Ocean Applied Sustainable Technologies. And our goal at COAST is really to help grow the blue economy in Victoria, in BC, and in Western Canada, to help increase the impact that our companies have, to grow more new companies, to connect us to the Canadian and global ecosystem. And we're doing that in several ways. One, we're going to build a hub, so a physical presence where companies can co-locate, where they can share resources, where we can host companies from other regions. Entrepreneurship programs and accelerators, venture capital funding to help grow those early stage companies and to help scale them. And then really to create an innovation cluster where we're bringing together startups, larger companies, companies from elsewhere, creating collaborations to create new market opportunities. And COAST is community supported. SIP, South Island Prosperity Partnership, Western Economic Diversification, Ocean Networks Canada, the City of Victoria, ABCMI have all played pivotal roles in forming COAST as it is to date. And it's an industry-led organization. So the board has representation from BC Ferries, Babcock Canada, ABCMI from the East Coast Ocean Startup Project, as well as from the US and international. So it's this broad perspective that is helping lead the direction of growing COAST. And we have strong interest from industry already with lots of initial membership. So I think it's really exciting, the opportunity we have here on the West Coast to be able to grow the blue economy. It has tremendous potential. It's $3 trillion in size and is one of the fastest growing economies. Here in BC, we have the largest maritime economy of all the provinces and territories, and we will benefit from building it so much. Not only will it grow our economy, create great jobs, but we are building a sustainable future for our children and for future generations. And really, I think this is a very important part of it, because the ocean is critical to our planet's health, to our economy, and to our community. And here in Victoria and Southern Vancouver Island, we have the opportunity to do something very remarkable. And I'm really excited about the potential we have to grow our blue economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. That was a really tremendous and inspirational presentation, and we are getting a lot of questions from the audience. So I'm going to dive right in. One attendee is asking, Are there other regions in the world that are capitalizing on the blue economy? And what can we learn from those areas?
Yeah, absolutely. A really great question. So I would say Norway is one of the leaders in the blue economy. I think their blue economy is about 23% of their GDP, so the largest of any country in the world. And we've worked very closely with a number of people in Norway to learn from, what have they learned along the way as they're building it, what is important to them in the future. So I think here in Victoria, not only can we learn from how they've done things, but we can work with them to create more collaboration and foster creating really a global ecosystem for us to drive innovation and build this blue economy.
Right. Yeah. And Julie, I know from working with Coast too, we've been working on some relationships with Norway and also what about the Pacific Northwest? What are your thoughts on building partnerships there?
Yeah, I think that's very important as well. There's a lot going on in the Pacific Northwest, all the way from Alaska down to San Diego. So we've already started to build those partnerships, and we have Coast Talks, which is a monthly speaking event, and we've had people come speak from those different regions. So we have Maritime Blue in Washington State, which I think is a very important relationship for us to have. Our waters are shared. There's lots of opportunity there. San Diego has a booming blue tech ecosystem. So being able to link those innovation clusters will be very advantageous for us.
Great. Yeah, perfect. Okay. And also, what about just, working with other parts of Canada, just sort of building on that? I know you've got some work that you've done with the Ocean Supercluster. Do you see that playing a big role in our future?
Yeah, I think, we are an ocean nation, coast to coast to coast, and we need to unite on that because we can learn from the East Coast and the blue economy there. They have a lot of great initiatives. They have a lot of amazing companies, and many companies are located on both coasts. So we have representation on our board from the Ocean Supercluster as well as the Ocean Startup Project, which are largely focused on developing the ocean ecosystem on the East Coast, but really are spreading across Canada. So this is a national initiative, and I think all the players are really looking at it as a national strategy to grow our blue economy. So we need to look at ways in which we can bridge that geographic gap to be able to work more closely together. And I think in many ways that is one of the things that COVID has shown us, this ability to work virtually, to be able to link across broad expansive geographics and be able to create synergies.
Okay. I think those are some really important points. And we actually have quite a lot of Atlantic Canadians here with us this week during Rising Economy Week, who are also really thrilled about building the blue economy in Canada. So good comment there. And I've got another excellent question. What advice have you for young people who are interested in oceans, but not sure where to start when it comes to building a career in the blue economy?
Yeah, I would say that's great that you're interested. And I'd encourage you to explore and to find out more about, what it is that you like about the blue economy, because there's such a range of job opportunities. It could be developing tech, engineering. When I look at our company, there's a lot of engineering roles, software, mechanical, electrical. It could be analyzing data, so an ocean sciences background, or it could be communication. So being able to, translate the findings that we have in our oceans and making it understandable to all. It could be going out there and being on boats, recreational. So there's so many different ways to engage in the blue economy. And I think, it really starts with if you have a passion for it, an interest in the ocean or in waters, looking at where your skill set aligns with some of those opportunities.
Great advice there. Okay, I've got a good question here. When are you going to be rowing the Pacific?
That's why we built autonomous boats. We're going to send those out there now. No, but rowing across an ocean is an amazing experience. It really is. It's uncomparable. You're just out there 24/7 watching the ocean in all of its conditions, and it changes your perspective on things. And each of my expeditions have been different. So I've done a lot of different expeditions, and each one is about exploring in a different way. And to me, building open ocean robotics is about exploring. We're creating new technology, innovations. We're exploring the oceans in a whole new way. And I really do see a future where our oceans are not the mystery that they are now, where we don't understand how they're being harmed. We don't understand the impacts that are occurring. It's difficult to operate on them. So for me, this is an adventure. It is exploring. I'm just doing it in a different way.
Thank you. And that makes me leads me to another question here. And it's really around the nature of the sustainability aspects of the blue economy. And so to your mind, when people talk about the blue economy, are they always meaning it to be sustainable? And as you say, as we begin to ask more and more from our oceans, and it spans so many different industries, how do we make sure, or do you think we need to make sure that sustainability is still at the heart of the blue economy?
I think we do need to make sure that sustainability is at the heart of it. Whenever we rely on our natural resources, we have to make sure that we don't take more than we can. We have to make sure that, it's there for future generations to leave it better than it was before. And maybe historically, that hasn't been how the blue economy has been viewed, but now it is. The blue economy is seen as being, that not only does it need to be profitable, but it needs to be sustainable, and it needs to help communities. And I think it's only when we bring those three things together that we will truly create a prosperous economy for all.
That's important, I think. And a lot of people are, calling it the green economy, but I suppose the blue economy is kind of green, would you say? I guess. All right, another discussion. So another question over here I have from Sonia Motiska. I hope I pronounced that correctly. How can we support the growth of companies like Open Ocean Robotics to continue building out the blue economy in the West Coast?
Probably in lots of ways. I mean, if you're interested in getting into the blue economy, companies like ours are always looking for talent. So people who are driven, who believe in the cause, and have the skills to help grow a company like ours. I think, other ways are stewardship to the ocean. Understanding that we need to protect the ocean, we need to operate sustainably, and that will create sort of a sea change in our values and what we believe is important. And, we are seeing this, and we're holding companies accountable to, reaching those sustainability goals and not only being profit driven. So that really helps companies like us who have that as part of our mandate.
Okay, and what sort of investments do you think that we are going to require in our region to become strong leaders in Canada and the world in the blue economy?
Yeah, I think I think we need to recognize the potential here and do more to blow our own horn about what we have as a blue economy, to highlight that and the potential there. So I think, part of the early stages, I mean, we do need government support. We do need industry support. We do need to build a community. We need to link it to other communities. So, I mean, I think, Coast is as a great starting point, and we just need to have more resources, and we need to think smartly about how we're going to build those ecosystems, because for us to create a blue economy ecosystem, we need to nurture the growth of existing companies to help them, achieve greater market share, to continue to innovate, to do that in a sustainable way. We need to grow innovation. So, we need to have great academic institutions, which we do, University of Victoria, Ocean Networks Canada, Banfield Marine Science Center. So we need to encourage innovation in those ecosystems. We need to bring in venture capital money to help grow those startups and to provide that mentorship and expertise. We need to have government procure technologies that can be used in our ocean so that we can support those early stage companies and later stage companies. So it's a multi-pronged approach, but we just need to make it a priority, and we need to say we're going to do this, and we need to keep working at it until we achieve it.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Okay, this is sort of building on, I think, some of the passion you're clearly showing for this and determination, which we know you have in spades. And this attendee is saying, thank you, Julie. I loved your talk. You spoke about the similarities between your journey in entrepreneurship. How do you help others who have not yet weathered their own hurricanes, or who might be trying to avoid them altogether, and trust that the benefits will outweigh the risks?
Yeah. So everybody's journey is personal. So I think there's a lot of benefit to taking on risk, but it can be scary as well. So, you need to decide what challenges you want to take on and how you want to do that. And I think, like with many things in life, you can take baby steps. You don't have to decide to row across an ocean, right? You take on small challenges that push your boundaries a little bit, and then you learn how that was. You build the skills to deal with those challenges, and then you can apply it to something that's a little bit more challenging. And that's how you build that capacity to take on risk and the resiliency to deal with change, because it's not always easy, and it is a struggle. And then you find resources around you to help you figure out the things you don't know. Like before starting Open Ocean, I had no idea how to build a venture scale, high growth company with employees and international customers. And I joined all kinds of accelerators, and I had mentors that guided me, and somehow that made it more normal and helped me go over, get over challenges that at the beginning just seemed really insurmountable.
So what was harder, starting a business or rowing across the Atlantic?
Well, starting a business is a longer journey. So it was 5 months across the ocean, and then you're done. You achieved your goal. Growing a company, it's never really done. You want to keep growing it, and each stage is different. So in many ways, growing a company is harder.
Right. David Fassel, who is another Coast Advisory Board member, has a great question. And I'm sure he's got thoughts on it as well. How competitive are our BC ocean technology companies in the global market? How much of the market is outside of Canada for a typical ocean engineering company? That's a really important question. If we think about the global market opportunity is, of course, going to be driving this sector. So can you share your thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, thanks, David. I think we are leaders in a number of different sectors, ocean sensors being one of those, ocean robotics, sustainable ocean tech. And I think we have to be global leaders. I mean, let's face it, Canada isn't the biggest economy, right? We need to export, operate in the US and internationally. And there's a lot of opportunities in those different geographies. And our first customers actually were not Canadian, they were from the US. So I think it's very important that Canadian companies always look beyond our borders for marketing opportunities.
And that sounds really familiar. I mean, you hear that all the time about emerging technology companies and their first customers being outside of Canada. Something that obviously we want to help shift. So next question. To what extent is freshwater, lakes, rivers, et cetera, how are they part of the blue economy, or are really we just saltwater focused?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think they definitely are part of the blue economy. For us, from our perspective, I mean, we look at operating on the Great Lakes, and those are obviously large bodies of water that are suitable for our vessel. But rivers, clean drinking water, all of that is very important, and a lot of the technologies have applications to both. So, operate on the ocean or operating in lakes and rivers and, other bodies of water. And, I think as Canada, we do need to look at it holistically and especially take into consideration, some of these large bodies of water like the Great Lakes, where there just are so many similarities.
Really interesting. That connects to the next question. Actually, it's like we're coordinating in the audience here. Do you have any advice for companies who are currently working in areas outside of the blue economy, and to try to think about these wet applications, whether they're saltwater or freshwater?
Yeah, there's definitely, opportunities to transfer technology that is successful in one industry to ocean industries. And, sometimes those are some of the most successful stories, right? It works well. You've got a product out there. You just need to tweak it a little bit or go after a different market. So I guess probably, market familiarity would be really important, understanding what your value proposition is, what that pain point is. And really starting to talk to some of those potential customers. And I think that there's, a number of centers where there's expertise in the blue economy. And, obviously that's one of the goals of Coast, is to be able to, provide, some of that guidance, maybe some of those industry experts. There's other accelerators. There's, Foresight and Creative Destruction Lab. So those are other areas. And then there's, all kinds of events. There's industry associations. We have ABCMI here, and we have so much leadership in the blue economy, and it's a very supportive economy. So I would say, go out and reach out to some of these folks that are operating in that economy and try to ask questions and to learn how your product could be applicable.
Excellent answer. I probably have just time for one or two, so unfortunately won't get through all of these questions. But the next one is from another audience member who was really asking about what sort of particular industries do you think will be, part of our cluster here in the Pacific?
Yeah, good question. I think, we want to look at where our strengths lie and where the future of the blue economy is. So, when we look at our strengths now, we have a lot of strengths in ocean data collection. We have Ocean Networks Canada here. We have lots of incredible sensor companies here. And that is really an important thing for the future of the ocean, is being able to, collect that data, to monitor it and, continue to advance technologies there. I think ocean robotics also, we have lots of great underwater ocean robotic companies here, on surface, and aerial drones too. And so looking at how we can advance that, autonomous collection of data as well. And then sustainable energy production on the ocean, energy production through wave energy, maybe the potential wind energy. Food production is another one, seaweed growth. So I think, there's some key areas where we already have a lot of traction, where the geography of our coastline is well suited for, and where there is a lot of future potential. And we should, as a community, focus on really growing those areas.
Great. Okay. I have one last question for you before we're going to do our wrap up. So the question is really about sort of why do you think it is that in British Columbia, we haven't yet really started promoting the blue economy as much as it has been promoted and sort of prioritized in the Atlantic coast? And is that something that you think is it just happening beneath the surface and we're not talking about it? Or is it a latent sort of growth area? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so we obviously have a big blue economy. You know, we've got the largest one in Canada. The Maritimes collectively would have a larger economy, but it's also a larger percentage of their economy, right? So it's always been very important there. Whereas here on the West Coast, you know, we've got a lot of you know, other economies, whether it's healthcare or tourism and other things that really you know, are very significant. And the maritime economy hasn't been perceived as being significant, but that doesn't mean it isn't. We have done so much, incredible companies, technology, resources. So I think what it is really, it's a perception thing. It's time for us to blow our own horn and to say, look at all the amazing stuff we have here. Look at what we can do and look at what we're going to do in the future. And people are already starting to look and they're saying, you know, wow, this is great. How can we be a part of it? And we want to, you know, grease those wheels. We want to make it happen. We want to really shout out to the world what we have here, because what we have here is remarkable. So it's a story we need to tell, and I think we can tell it very well.
Well, that is a perfect way to end this very inspirational talk. And we obviously have made a lot of progress, and we start to need to tell that story better. So I really appreciate those concluding remarks in your whole presentation. It's made us feel like we're complete, at least me, total underachiever right now. I'll have to brush up on my canoe skills this weekend, but anyways, thank you very much, Julie. And I know you've got another talk to get to, so we'll release you from here. And I want to thank again the whole audience for being part of this talk. We're looking forward to catching you at some of our future.
Julie, for a fantastic presentation, and thank you to Shaw for sponsoring this important conversation. Thank you also to our presenting sponsor, RBC, and our innovation sponsor, BC Ferries, for supporting Rising Economy Week. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. We hope you enjoy the rest of Rising Economy Week, and please head back to the Hoover platform to continue the conversation. Thank you and have a good day.